Behind closed doors, this small town hid the truth. A story of secrets, love, and the truth that wouldn't stay buried. The porch swing creaked in the October wind, and that was the only sound in Millbrook, Alabama that night. But Sheriff Jack Brennan heard something else. A whisper, barely audible, coming from the old Whitmore house at the end of Maple Street. The house had been empty for 3 years. Everyone said so. Jack's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating peeling white paint and windows like dead eyes. He'd been sheriff of this town for 11 years, and in that time, he'd learned that Millbrook's secrets didn't stay buried. They just waited for the right moment to claw their way out of the red Alabama clay. He pushed open the front door. It wasn't locked. Nothing in Millbrook ever was. "Hello?" His voice echoed through the foyer, bouncing off the dusty chandelier that had once belonged to Eleanor Whitmore, the woman who died in this house, alone, with no family to claim her. The whisper came again, clearer now, a woman's voice, familiar. "Jack." His blood turned to ice, because that voice belonged to Sarah Mitchell, and Sarah Mitchell had been dead for 5 years. 3 days earlier, Jack had been sitting in Millbrook Diner on Main Street, nursing his third cup of coffee and pretending not to notice the way the rain streaked the windows like tears. The diner hadn't changed since 1987. The same red vinyl booths, the same chrome counter, the same pie case that never seemed to run empty. "You're gonna drink yourself into an ulcer, Sheriff." He looked up to find Emma Carter sliding into the booth across from him, her dark hair still damp from the rain, her green eyes carrying that same spark of mischief he'd fallen in love with when they were 16. She was a reporter now, working for the Montgomery Advertiser, though she came back to Millbrook every chance she got. Some people said she came back for the story. Jack knew better. She came back for him, even if neither of them would admit it. "Emma." He set down his coffee. "I thought you were in Birmingham covering that corruption scandal." "I was." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that made his heart do that stupid thing it had been doing for 20 years. "But then I got a call. Anonymous. They said there's something wrong with Eleanor Whitmore's will, something that connects to Sarah Mitchell's death." Jack's hand tightened around his mug. "Sarah's death was an accident. She fell. The coroner ruled it." "The coroner was Eleanor Whitmore's nephew," Emma interrupted, "and Eleanor Whitmore left everything, her house, her land, her fortune, to a charity that doesn't exist. A charity that was founded 3 days before she died, by someone named Sarah Mitchell." The diner seemed to tilt. Jack could hear the rain pounding harder, could smell the pecan pie warming in the kitchen, could see the way Emma's eyes searched his face for something he wasn't sure he could give her. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Is it?" Emma reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. The touch sent electricity through him, the same electricity that had been there since they were kids stealing kisses behind the bleachers at Millbrook High. "Jack, I think Sarah's alive, and I think this whole town has been lying about it for 5 years." That night, Jack stood in Eleanor Whitmore's foyer, his gun drawn, his heart hammering against his ribs. The voice had stopped, but he could hear footsteps upstairs, light, hesitant, like someone who hadn't walked on those floors in a very long time. He climbed the stairs, each step groaning under his weight. The hallway was dark, the portraits of dead Whitmores staring down at him with painted eyes that seemed to follow his movement. At the end of the hall, a door stood slightly ajar. Light flickered from within. Candlelight, not electric. Jack pushed the door open, and there she was. Sarah Mitchell sat in a rocking chair by the window, her blonde hair streaked with gray. Her blue eyes Jack had seen closed in a coffin 5 years ago, staring up at him with an expression that wasn't fear, but something worse: recognition and relief. "Hello, Jack," she said softly. "I wondered how long it would take you to find me." The story came out in pieces, like a puzzle assembling itself in reverse. Sarah had been Eleanor Whitmore's secret granddaughter, the child of Eleanor's daughter, given up for adoption in 1965, never spoken of again. She'd come to Millbrook 10 years ago to find her roots, and she'd found Eleanor instead. A frail, brilliant woman who'd spent her life hiding the truth about her family, about the Whitmore fortune built on stolen land and blood money, about the night in 1987 when a man named Thomas Brennan, Jack's own father, had covered up a murder to protect the town's most powerful family. "Your father wasn't a bad man, Jack," Sarah said, her voice gentle as she rocked in that chair, the candlelight dancing across her face. "He was trapped, just like everyone else in Millbrook. The Whitmores owned this town. They owned the bank, the newspaper, the sheriff's department. When Eleanor's husband killed that migrant worker in '87, your father made it go away, and in return, they made him sheriff." Jack felt the floor shift beneath him. "My father died of a heart attack. He was a good man. He was a good man who did terrible things," Sarah said. "And when I started asking questions 5 years ago, when I found the documents in Eleanor's attic, the contracts, the payoffs, the photographs, they decided I had to disappear. But Eleanor couldn't let them kill her own blood, so she helped me fake my death. The fall from the bluff. A setup. The body in the coffin. A Jane Doe from Montgomery buried in my place. And you've been here all this time?" Sarah smiled, sad and knowing. "Eleanor hid me in the walls, Jack. Literally. There's a room behind the pantry, a space no one knew about except her. I've been living there for 5 years, waiting for someone brave enough to look behind the closed doors of this town and see the truth." Emma found them an hour later, her camera clicking as she documented everything: the hidden room, the documents, the photographs of a smiling Thomas Brennan shaking hands with a man Emma recognized from her research as a known organized crime figure from Mobile. "Jack," she breathed, lowering her camera. "This is bigger than Millbrook. This goes all the way to the governor's office." Jack looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. Not as the girl he'd loved and lost, not as the reporter who'd broken his heart when she'd left for college, but as the woman who'd come back, who'd believed in him even when he hadn't believed in himself. "We can't publish this yet," he said. "If we do, they'll kill her. They'll kill us. We need evidence. We need witnesses. We need to tear this town apart," Emma said, her eyes blazing with that fire he remembered, the fire that had made her the best journalist in Alabama. "Starting with the Whitmore Foundation, the charity that doesn't exist. It's a shell company. I've been tracing the money. It's going to a private account in the Cayman Islands. And the name on that account?" She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's your father's, Jack. He's been dead for 12 years, but his name is still signing checks." The next 48 hours were a blur of phone calls and secret meetings, of digging through archives in the Millbrook Public Library basement, of Emma's fingers flying across her laptop as she traced financial records that should have been buried forever. They worked together like they'd never been apart, finishing each other's sentences, sharing coffee and sandwiches, and moments in the dark where their hands would touch and neither would pull away. On the second night, in the back room of Millbrook Diner after closing, Emma turned to him with tears in her eyes. "I never stopped loving you," she said. "I left because I was scared, because this town felt like a cage, and I thought if I stayed, I'd become one of the secrets behind the closed doors. But I was wrong, Jack. The cage wasn't Millbrook. It was my own fear." He took her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears that tasted like salt and redemption. "I never stopped either. I thought you deserved better than a small-town sheriff with a family history of covering up murders." "We all have histories," she whispered. "It's what we do with them that matters." He kissed her then, in the darkness of the diner where they'd shared their first milkshake at 15, and it felt like coming home. The arrest happened on a Tuesday. Jack walked into the Millbrook Savings and Loan with a warrant in one hand and his father's old service revolver in the other. The current bank president, Eleanor Whitmore's grandnephew Richard, looked up from his mahogany desk with an expression of such perfect practice surprise that Jack almost laughed. "You can't be serious, Sheriff. These allegations are—" "They're true," Jack said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Every single one. The murder of Carlos Rivera in 1987, the payoffs to the Montgomery coroner, the faked death of Sarah Mitchell, and the money, Richard. Millions of dollars laundered through a fake charity, signed off by a dead man. You really thought no one would ever look?" Richard's face crumpled, the mask slipping to reveal the terrified child beneath. "They'll kill me. If I talk, they'll kill me." "Then talk to the FBI," Jack said, gesturing to the agents who'd followed him in, who'd been waiting in Montgomery for this moment for 3 years. "Because the people you work for, they're already cutting their losses, and you're the loose end." The trials lasted 18 months. The governor resigned. 3 state senators were indicted. The Whitmore fortune, built on a century of exploitation, corruption, and murder, was seized and redistributed to the families who'd been victimized by it, including Carlos Rivera's grandchildren, who finally received justice for a grandfather they'd never known. Sarah Mitchell emerged from hiding to testify, then disappeared again, this time to a new life in Oregon, where no one knew her name. She sent Jack a postcard once, a photograph of the Pacific Ocean at sunset, with 3 words on the back: "Thank you. Live." Jack and Emma were married in the spring, in a small ceremony at the Millbrook Community Church. The diner catered the reception. The pie was pecan, and it was perfect. But the story doesn't end there, because Millbrook is still standing. The houses still have their secrets, their closed doors, their whispered histories. And somewhere in this country, maybe in your town, maybe on your street, there's a house that looks empty but isn't. There's a voice that whispers in the dark. There's a truth waiting for someone brave enough to open the door and let in the light. Jack Brennan learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act despite it, to love despite the risk, to believe that even in the darkest places, even behind the most tightly closed doors, the truth will find its way out. And sometimes, just sometimes, that truth leads you home. Closing note: thank you for being here, for watching this story, for believing that even in a world of closed doors and hidden truths, there's always a way through. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that love and courage can exist in the same breath, then I'm glad you're on this channel. This is a place for stories that matter, for words that stay with you long after you've closed the page, for the kind of storytelling that makes you feel less alone in this big, beautiful, complicated world. So here's to you, reader. Here's to the stories we tell and the truths we uncover. Here's to the courage it takes to open the doors in our own lives and let the light in. Good luck out there. Stay curious, stay brave, and most of all, stay on this channel and subscribe because the best stories are the ones we discover together. See you in the next chapter. Your storyteller.